Now I'm sure you're all wondering why I brought you here today. I'm sorry. We're going to talk about the movie as part of my honors thesis project. So it's called Level Up. It's a feature-length film. It is an hour and 19 minutes and 42 seconds. So if we had about an hour and 10 minutes more, I'd show you the movie. But in lieu of that, I will show you the trailer just to kind of give you a sense if I can get the mouse to work. That works. Do we have a volume control? Anybody who's in charge? If not, you can just listen very closely. All right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome to the Media Club, guys. Always glad to have some community.
That's Brian Mitchell and Ellsworth. Brian Mitchell, Ellsworth, Jeff,
Yes. Very cool. If you're not here, how can you learn? What?
everything. Life, the universe.
Mark my words. Unless something catastrophic happens. Not in or not. For a
So that's a full movie. If you want, you can check it out on my YouTube page. Like, comment, and subscribe, etc. So let's talk about how that got made. So I need to take you back to the fall semester of 2015. I took a screenwriting course, and it was at this point that I started writing the script for this movie, knowing that eventually I would be using it as, the project for my thesis project. So, as I said, it was part of my screenwriting class. I ended up having my professor, Melissa Martin, as my advisor for this project, which was really helpful. The nice thing about having this as a screenwriting project, first and foremost, was kind of the class feedback that I got with it. Instead of me pulling myself up in a dark room and writing it all by myself, there was constant, ebb and flow, which really helped it get off the ground. Now, when I was writing it, there were kind of two things I wanted to play with. One, I wanted to take this trope of nice guys finish last and kind of turn it on its head. That's a different presentation entirely why I think that's a stupid idea, but that's something I wanted to play with the story. The other thing was I wanted to create something that I could fit dragons and zombies and wizards and magic and all the things that I really like into one narrative film that made sense in context, which is how this whole kind of video game dynamic came about. So, since this is still an honors thesis project, there was some research involved. Oh, never mind. Apparently the scrolling wheel does so. So, I had three kind of main topics that I needed to look into to help kind of build this out. The first was how to film on a budget. The budget in this case being $0.00 because I'm poor. The other two aspects are a little bit more similar, which were for more character development stuff when writing these characters, and that was social anxiety in college and the social impact of video games and how it kind of impacts the way people behave around each other. And the reason for that, again, was that I could kind of have a framework to base how some of these characters would interact off each other, and if you watch the movie, you'll see some of that unfold. So, like anything, there are no, as we say, there's no such thing as an original idea, just original interpretation. So, I took some inspiration from a couple different sources, one being a YouTube series called Video Game High School, which is where I got the idea of this kind of dichotomy between the real world and the video game worlds in which the characters interact in the movie. The next was a movie that we screened in screenwriting called Juno, which is Ellen Page and that other guy. Yeah. And what I took from that is this kind of almost the style of writing it takes. The dialogue in that movie is, well, it's not how people actually talk in real life, but it's very fun to watch in the context of the movie, so that's something I kind of took with me into this script. The last was Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, another Michael Cera film. Retroactively kind of inspired me, because I actually hadn't seen that movie until after I finished the first draft of the script. So after watching that, it kind of influenced more towards the production aspects of when we were filming, of how we went about doing it. So moving on to pre-production, just real quick, in filmmaking terms, there are 3 stages of making a movie: pre-production, production, and post-production. We're not very creative when it comes to coming up with names. So the first thing we had to do, of course, was finish the script. For screenwriting, I only had to have 35 pages done, so obviously I had to finish it. It ended up being 87 pages by the time I was done, to give you a frame of reference. During the summer, I sent it back and forth between me and my advisor, and we kind of came up with some rewrites, nothing too extravagant. We added a couple more layers of conflict, some character growth. One of the characters got more of an involved subplot. We grew and expanded the character of the professor, who you saw a little bit in the trailer, because Melissa really loved his character and wanted to see more of him, so he's in a bit more of the movie if you watch than was previously intended. So now that I have a script, I had to put together a crew of people to help me shoot the movie, because, well, I thought going in I couldn't do it by myself. I'll talk about that in a second. One might call it a skeleton crew, perhaps a motley crew. The bottom one, that's motley crew, by the way. That's fine. Unfortunately, we are college students, we're busy. I wasn't able to get a big group of people to help me behind the scenes. It ended up being mostly me and my camera, and then another guy who would come occasionally to help with some of the other stuff. It ended up being mostly I had my cast carry stuff for me, because, as I'll talk about in a minute, we have a lot of heavy things in filmmaking to carry around. So next was finding a cast, obviously. I held auditions. I had them in Massey Theater in September. I had about 30 so people come out, which was awesome, because that's about how many people I needed. So I had a nice pool of people to pull from. I did have to ask, I think, just one person to come and play a role that I didn't find somebody in auditions to fill. So next we had to establish where we were going to shoot. Now, obviously, this takes place on a college campus. We're on a college campus. That worked out really easily. The tough part was finding locations to shoot off campus. As you saw in these video game scenes, we're out in these fields, these forests, and those are places that you have to go out and usually ask permission to film in. One of the places that I wanted to shoot was the parking lot that's currently being torn up and turned into a Walmart, because back then it was still this very post-apocalyptic looking, decrepit parking lot of that old Meadows Casino. So I tried to get in contact with a bunch of people. All of them ignored me. So I was not able to shoot there because I felt that it wouldn't be appropriate to take 20 people with a bunch of prop guns and run around down there and not expect to be arrested. So we ended up finding a different location, which I thought suited my needs, but again, that's some of the trials of shooting with a no-budget film that we once saw. So we also needed costumes and props. Now, we filmed a lot during October, so we were able to find costumes and props fairly easily, just due to Halloween stores and things of that nature. The other thing, again, I was talking about prop guns. Turns out a really cost-effective way to make prop sci-fi looking guns is to take Nerf guns and spray paint them black, and then you have something that looks fairly menacing and cool looking. You'll actually find a lot of low-budget sci-fi films do that exact thing. The last thing I needed, interestingly, was medieval weaponry, as you saw in the trailer. I was able to get those because a professor who goes here, Michael Curran, lended me a bunch. So, in production, I had a Panasonic HD camera, boom mics, tripods, green screen, and C-stand. Those things are the devil if you've ever worked with them. Coordinating 30 people is hard. That was one of the struggles with filming this. We shot most of the weekends. Murphy's Law is that anything that goes wrong can go wrong, will go wrong. I had a story, but I'm running out of time, so ask me about it later. Post-production. which is the editing. We're talking about sequential editing, sound editing, music, and color. All these things I had to do in a program called Premiere. Now the big thing in this was visual effects. The explosions, the lasers, the Pokemon, as you saw in the trailer. That's easily the most time-consuming thing. Again, ask you about later. And then, of course, rendering and exporting the entire movie. It took about a little under 24 hours to export the final hour, 19-minute thing. So the future for this movie, it's done. I'm submitting to film festivals. That's supposed to be a gift. I'm saying. Sending it to film theaters that show independent films. I have a concept for a sequel, which might happen if and only if we get an actual budget to do things with. That's kind of the operative with that. What I mean by reboot is, say, some rich and powerful person sees the movie and decides, I like this, I can do something with this, and they would either buy the script or the rights from me, and then they would make it. So that is something that could happen. So that's a really, really quick rundown of the process behind making the movie. There's a lot involved. Again, it took about 2 years from start to finish. If you have any questions, I would love to take them later. Thank you.